So the Mishnah Berurah is going to come up with, a way of making tea on Shabbat, or really two ways of making tea. Um, uh, he is not the way that in the communities that I live in, they make tea. Usually the places that I live, they use, well, this technique that really, I think Rav Moshe Feinstein innovates, which is the klish shlishi tea making, where you put the tea bag you steep the tea bag in a klish shlishi. I personally, I'll be honest, don't make tea on Shabbos just because but I do make coffee. I do make instant coffee on Shabbos, and also in a klish but so we'll talk about it because I know a lot of people, and there's very much a good reason to not follow the Mishnah Berurah to do the community practice of making it either a klish or maybe even a klish sheni, not once the water's in there, depending on how you view tea leaves and what they're doing and so forth. So. Good. We're going to do just Dalet today. Let me read Dalet in full in Shin Yud Chet in the Shulchan Aruch. So Siman Shin Yud Chet Sif Dalet, and then we'll go through Mishnah Berurah, a lot of it, maybe a little bit Berurah Lacha as well. So Tavshil Shnit Bashel Kol Tzorko. Yesh bo mishum bishul imistanen. So something, a cooked dish, which is fully cooked, still could be fall into the rules of bishul. In other words, if you cook it again, or you continue to cook it, maybe even, it could be considered your chayav for bishul. We'll look at some details of that if it has cooled down, right? Via shomrim dafke mitztamek via fellow, right? But the Rama adds, some people say that's actually only if it continues as it literally mitztamek, as it dries or shrinks, it gets better. It continues to improve. And so that's a major kula that he's throwing in there. All right, but we're going to ignore that for the moment. Stay with the mechaber of im lonit bashel kol tzarko. What if it's not fully cooked? Even if it's cooked to this level of ben drosai, who is this thief who would eat his food, when it was just cooked enough to be edible, but not really the amount that people would actually eat it at, either a third, a half, something like that. Shayach bo bishul afilu be'odorotech. In that case, right, if it's at ben drosai, or less than, or even less obviously, but even if it's already made it to ben drosai, but hasn't made it to cold sorko, where there's a big gap between the two. Rav Nachum made a nice chart for us, right? Even if it's still boiling hot and it keeps cooking, you're chayav for cooking on Shabbos. So. All right. So fully cooked, if it cools down and you recook it on Shabbos so far, you reheat it on Shabbos, I'd even say, and then you could be chayav for bishul. And if it's in the process of cooking and hasn't made it to cold sorko, but it's still very hot, you could still be chayav for cooking, right, as well. So. What we're not talking about, by the way, which we'll get when we get to Rishon and Gimel, which I know is going backwards, but something we will definitely do, is in Rishon and Gimel, we'll talk about like putting something completely raw on a heat source right before Shabbos and letting it cook for all of until shacharit kind of thing. That's a different story. We're not talking about that case, right? We're talking about like something is machal ben drosai, and I go and I stir it. I try, and I'm helping the bishul kind of thing. Okay. And all of this that says that we can have cooking be higher for cooking again, even after something's cooked. That's dealing with when there is, we'll call it liquid in the food. But if it's already cooked and it's complete, I don't want to say completely, it's dry. This is a Mishnah, right? You're allowed to soak it in hot water on Shabbat. We'll talk about what kind of soaking, what we're talking about. And if it's something's completely dry, but it's not cooked before Shabbat, you can't put it in hot water on Shabbat. But you can pour hot water on it on Shabbat. With the exception of these two types of fish, very salty fish maybe, and this kulyas ha'ispanin, right? They only need a little bit of cooking. And pouring this hot water on them is how you finish. I'm going to say finish cooking them. Although I don't think I brought this, but in the Berurah he gets in this whole debate about is the malacha your chayav there for bishul or makeh patish, and whether or not makeh patish ever even is applicable in food. So, okay. And then finally, I'll finish the Rama. V'hu adin kol davar kasheh she'enu ra'u le'achol klal below shriya. De'asur lishoto b'Shabbat, dehavi gemar melacha. And this is the same rule that Rama says, anything that's so hard that you can't eat it at all without soaking it in water, you can't soak it in water in Shabbat because that is finishing the malacha. Well, we may do a little bit of that also in the Mishnah Berurah. Okay. Any questions just on the, well, I'm sure there's plenty of questions, but just like the clarification questions on the Shulchan Aruch itself before we jump into the Mishnah Berurah. Did I say anything wrong? It's quite possible. Or all right, just to remind, right? We are.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to, and at the very beginning, the top line, you said yesh bo mishum bishul initztanen. I think you translated that as could have bishul if it.
Oh, it does have bishul. Yeah,
okay.
The reason.
But is that because of marak that you said could?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's why I was hedging a little bit because he by the way, it's interesting. The Mechaber almost completely copies the Torah here. And maybe he does completely copy the Torah. I have to look back, which is interesting. If you maybe I should ask this as a question. Who, he goes on for a while saying the Torah doesn't agree with a certain person who the Torah usually agrees with, and then he follows the Torah amazingly. Who am I talking about? And the Rosh, yeah. What is the Torah? Where did the Torah and the Rosh disagree?
On the question of Ben Drusai or Koltzer Co.
Yeah,
that's the threshold.
Yeah, the Rosh thinks once you've gotten to Ben Drusai, you're not chayav for bishul anymore, and not just the Rosh, but there's a lot of people. And it's if you remember right, the Beit Yosef actually says in the Kitzur Piskei Rosh, right, which is written by the Tur, he says the Rosh holds that once you get to Bet Drusai, you're no longer chayav. But then the Beit Yosef kind of dismisses it as like he's following the dot of the Rosh because he's summarizing the Rosh. He's not giving his own opinion. But it's interesting that he follows the Torah here. Okay. All right. I want to start. We did a little bit of Mishnah Berurah on this last time. So we're going to jump in to Kaf Zayin. This is Afilu Be'odoroteach. That if you have something that is already Machal Ben Drusai, but it's not Kol Tzarko, and you can still fall into the Chiyuv of Bishul, even if it's still boiling. So he's actually going to get into, an interesting question about what if a non-Jew finishes the cooking for you at this point. Josie, can you read for us? Is that available?
Sure. Afilu be'odoroteach, pashut afilu al yedei eno yehudi asur likmor habishul. So it's clear that even by way of a non-Jew finishing it, it's still forbidden to finish the cooking.
Yeah, in other words, I just want to, right, you can't say, well, we made it to Machal Ben Drusai. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you can imagine
this person could finish it for you.
Yeah, you go call your non-Jew. Maybe it's Derabanan, right? At this point, you can even imagine, right? It's you call your non-Jewish neighbor, and they'll like, okay, my chicken made it to Machal Ben Drusai. I want my guest to be happy though, and maybe not die. And get a non-Jew to finish it. That's a sur, right? It's actually the Mishnah Berurah points this out. You're still chayav chatat at this point. You can't get a non-Jew to do this.
It's right.
Yeah, but
you're at Dividiavad in Lasor Tavshil, the Yeshus Moch al Haposkim, Shesovrim, the Kevan Shniposhel Kamachal Ben Drusai, Tov.
I have Shuv. I have Shuv there.
Shuv. And Bazeh Mishum Bishul. So, but after the fact, it's, the food itself, if you've already done this, the food itself is not forbidden to you. Because you can rely upon some of the poskim that reason that since we already made it to Ben Drusai, you don't have there's no more bishul after this.
Mm-hmm. In other words, b'diavad, maybe we can rely on the Rosh. If I now we'll look at the Bir Halacha. It's like an interesting question. Does he mean b'diavad if a non-Jew finished it, or I think he actually means b'diavad if somebody else, even a Jew, finished it, right? Finished the cooking. Like you go to someone's house and they're paskening by the Rosh, essentially, right? It's like, even though the Mechaber doesn't do that, there's al mali smoch b'diavad, right? It's a pretty powerful statement. In fact, go to, is it Afilu Be'odoroteach? Is that right? Yes. Josie, go to the Be'ur Halacha, Afilu Be'odoroteach.
Kain hu da'at harambam v'tur, it came mashma b'tosfot.
Yeah, don't worry where and all that, right?
uh,
Skip the parentheses for the parenthetical for the moment. So
I'm sorry, the print in my edition is very, very poor. Can I ask someone else to step?
yeah, we can ask someone else. Max, you want to take over? Just you may have a better printed edition of Berurah.
והנה לפלא היה בעיניי מתחילה על פסק המחבר, שסתם כדעת הרמב"ם, דהלא הרבה ראשונים חולקים על זה, והם הרמב"ן בחידושיו, ורבני יונה, והרשב"א, והראש, והר"ן, והמאירי, כולם פוסקין דמכיוון שנתבשל כמאכל בן דרוסאי, שוב אין בו משום בישול, ומותר להחזיר בשבס לתנור גרוף מן הגחלים, אף שהוא חם ויכול לגמור הבישול על ידי זה.
Good.
Keep going or pause?
Let's stop there for the moment. Yeah.
Okay. But I'm shocked that the Mechaber paskins like the Rambam, because there are so many Rishonim in the other direction, all of whom say that once it gets to Ben Drusai, there's no more bishul after that, and so you can even put it back into a tanor as long as it's garuf and katsum, even though it's still hot, and you can finish the cooking that way.
Exactly. So
yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. Omnam מצאתי אחר כך דגם דס הרמב"ם לאו דס יחידה. Is that what that says?
Yeah, יחידה. Yeah.
יחידה היא דהרבה מן הראשונים שסוברים כמוסו, והוא האור זרוע הגדול, מצדד גם כן.
It's Gam Kem Ken. He also holds
גם כן כן. עיין שם במלאכת אופה, וגם מביא שם כן בסוף דבריו בשם פירוש הריבה. Right, but it's there are other Rishonim who paskin like the Rambam. He's not really a Das Yachid, like the Or Zarua and Ve'od Matzati.
Yeah, good. I'm gonna have you skip now. He's got a lot of people. He's gonna go through this, and a lot of people on the other side of the whole thing, right? He's try and prove that. And I want you to jump way down. And umikoma is ve'alkain in lazuz lamase. It's almost towards the end of this comment. Maybe not almost. It's fairly far down.
Okay. Oh yeah, I got it. Okay. Ve'imkain ein lazuz lemase mipsak hashulchan aruch uvifrat dehu deoraisa. ומכל מקום נראה בדיעבד אם החזיר הישראל, הישראל הקדרה במקום חם, דהיינו לתנור גרוף, דאילב הכי אסור משום חזרה לכולי עלמא, אין לאסור התבשיל בדיעבד. וכמו שכתב הפרמיגדים בסעיף קטן י"ד, דכל שיש ספק פלוגתא אי הווה בישול אילה אסור, Ila Asor B'Zeh B'Diavad. Right, but Lechatchila we paskin by the Shulchan Aruch, and we say that it's Doraisa. But in a B'Diavad case, if a Jew went ahead and put,
I think it's because it would be front, especially because it is Doraita, right? Since it's Doraita, in fact, we should go L'chumra here, right?
Okay, got it. Right, since it's Doraita, okay. But b'di'evad, if a Jew put the kedera back into a tanor that's garuf and katum, right? Because otherwise it'd be aser. Then you can b'di'evad, you can have that dish.
Exactly. And then this great principle, right? Anything that has where we have a safek plukta, right? There's a debate about whether or not this particular thing counts as bishul on Shabbos. Right, then we b'diavad, not lechachila, but b'diavad, we're not oser. So, as a really important principle, because you may be in places in your life, I've been there, where someone does something where it's not the usual psak halacha of like reheating stuff, right? But there are strong opinions to agree with what was done, right? It's even if it goes against the mechaber, so maybe you are still allowed to eat that food, even though you yourself probably shouldn't do that, right? Not probably, you shouldn't do that, but it doesn't mean you should like dismiss yourself or avoid that food or something like that.
Yeah, it's a very important principle, and also a motivator to learn all the halachot that we don't paskin like.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like that's when I usually hear this principle invoked, is like, this is the thing where the more you know, the more lenient you can be.
Yeah, not lechatchila, but b'diavad, right? Very important to, as I said, like, look, one of the hardest things about things that comes up in kashrut too, but maybe in some ways a little bit less, I think. But on Shabbos, sometimes because people don't know, sometimes it's because people have different traditions, right, of cooking in particular, where you go to someone's house and you're like, ooh, wow, I don't know, right? You don't say that out loud, hopefully. You just like, you have to make a decision, like, can I eat the food? And this is like a from Jew, right? But people have different traditions, people know different things, right? And so forth. So yeah, very important. Okay, good. But let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah. I wrote myself a note for Kaftet. Oh yes, this is or we did this in Shiur, but let's do it again because it's so important. It's the whole thing about this, all this stuff about being shayach, that bishul shayach is only when there's marak. And the Mishnah Berurah actually gives his opinion as to why. So Josie, if you could read that for us, Kaftet in the Mishnah Berurah.
Kaftet, divadavar lach, kevan she'azio hamimoto, v'nitztanen, bata mimenu sham bishulo harishon.
Yeah, a shame. I think it's bit batam mimenu shem bishul. Yeah.
Nipashal ela near. Hold on a second. Bata mimenu sham bishul.
Yeah, batam mimenu shem. The name of, or the
shame.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still having problems reading this.
It's okay.
So with a moist or wet thing, once it's cooled off, once its heat is left and it's cooled off, it's lost its cooked nature already. It's sort of gone back, reverted to raw.
Exactly right. I think that the ultimate, test of this, or the ultimate paradigm of this—that's the word I'm looking for—is water. Right? If I boil water and it cools down, I'm not like, that was boiled water. Right? It's water at this point, right? It's not.
That's why they say if you need water later on, boiled water for your pasta, rather than waiting for it, take some boiled water and put it in your freezer, and then you can have it for later. But it doesn't make sense seriously with something like chicken soup, right?
I know.
Chicken soup doesn't go back to being uncooked because it's cooled.
Yes, exactly. That's the we were talking about this in Shiur a little bit, right? This came up, and right, Rav Nachum brought for us a second reason, which is the mitzamek ve'afelo, right? Is that so maybe you need one or the other, right? Either if it's a substance where you can't tell if it was cooked, after it's cooled down, or it's a substance that as it continues to cook continues to get better, like soup, then both of those are problematic for cooking on Shabbos. So.
And the same thing with something like tea essence, right? If you're one of these people that does tea essence, right? The tea essence doesn't go back to being uncooked tea or unbrewed tea once it cools off.
Oh, interesting. Although we're going to treat it like that, and we're going to see where you have to put it in a cliché and all that.
I mean, that's how we work in real life. Is it, you take your tea essence, pour it in a cliché, and then
exactly, yeah,
into hot water.
Exactly. That's the way traditionally you do it, right? You have tea essence, which we'll see this with very strongly brewed tea. Although the Mishnah is going to suggest also what you could do, and this is interesting enough, right? Is that when you're making the essence, right, you pour hot water on the tea leaves from like a kli rishon before Shabbos, and then those tea leaves are now cooked to some extent. So you could now later, put them at least in a kli sheni, right? And even though they've lost some of their flavor, but you can use them now because they are now cooked items. So, Okay, good. Those are both ways that he's going to approve of making tea. It's I have no clue, by the way. It might be an interesting piece of research if the tea that you buy in tea bags, and it's of course different depending on herbal teas and regular real tea and all that stuff. If any of those are like flash cooked ahead of time for safety reasons, and when that affects what we're talking about. So,
I think that they are dried in an oven,
so it's
and
going to
that
be. Yeah, go ahead, Rav Nachum.
and so that'll be bishul acharafia,
Yeah, yeah.
which Sephardim are makel on.
Yeah, it's the same question that's going to show up with coffee, right? Coffee is also, right, it is roasted before you get it, but it's not mivushal. And so if you hold like Ashkenazim would do that, which will be the next seif, that there is bishul achar afiyard sliya in the case of coffee, then that would be problematic potentially. So, but okay, good. I think great. Doesn't Rav Ovadia Yosef rule that you can make tea in a from like Irui Kli Rishon? I think he does, right?
I mean, I don't know. It could be that I know that some Sephardim do that. I guess it probably based on that.
Yeah. So, and we also said we'll see this also, right? That there might be a different. Well, that would be Irui Kli Rishon. So there might be a difference, at least in a Kli Sheni, between when we talk about something that looks like bishul, between actually cooking the thing versus flavoring the water, right? Those are two different activities. Okay. Let's let's look at Lamed Bet in the Mishnah Berurah. We said that something that's yavesh. I actually found this kind of interesting. So that's why we're bringing this very short. If it's devar yavesh that was already fully cooked before Shabbat, you can reheat it on Shabbat. There's no worries about that. And so he actually defines yavesh. I thought that was interesting. Isaac, you don't mind Lamed Bet in the Mishnah Berurah.
V'hu yavesh, and it's dry. V'tono lomar sheheriku hamarak mimenu. So what he's trying to say is that the liquid, the liquid has like evaporated from it, I think.
Oh no, I think heriku is you cast out, you poured out the marak, right? And right. So what he's not talking about is the way I always understood it as like a substance is really truly dry. He's talking about something where you have like chicken, you pour out the sauce essentially, and then you put the chicken after. You go for it, Max. Do you disagree with the read or you?
No, I don't disagree with the read. But what about Berurah?
Oh, you mean like no? You could do that before Shabbos, right?
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah. So or you could take the chicken out from the. Okay, let me. I shouldn't tell you. I should ask. How would you do it? How would you do it? It's on Shabbos. You got chicken in sauce. How do you do it so it's not borer?
You would need to take all of the chicken out and
put it into another pan.
Sorry?
Take the chicken out and put it in another pan.
Yeah.
Right,
well,
but
doesn't that depend? Okay.
But when yeah.
Well, good. There's one more fact. Well, maybe two more factors, but go for it, Isaac.
What do you consider? Right. If the point of Berurah is that you can't take the stuff you don't want out of the stuff you do want, what if you want both the marak and the meat?
It's about what you want right now, though, right? So yeah. So if you want the chicken for the next meal and it's like close to the next meal, you could take the chicken out, put it on the.
No, but like I'm thinking like if you the only thing that's coming to my mind is treif, so you'll have to forgive me. But like, if you have steamed mussels, right? You steam them in wine, then you have a broth that's created, and you also have the mussels. And if you want to just drink the broth, which you might do it, you're probably going to do it the same meal as eating the mussels. You want them both at the same time.
Yeah, but you only want one to heat it up, right? It's only the chicken. So you take the chicken out, put that on the plata, and and then you heat that. That's fine. So, but okay.
I remember this came up. It's like a few months ago. I had some chicken dish with sauce in it that I was worried about Berurah because I think we'd had the chicken Friday night and then we wanted to have leftovers for lunch. And I saw an opinion somewhere that Another option is to pour all of it like over a bed of rice or something,
Oh, then it gets absorbed.
and then it gets absorbed and you don't have to worry about the liquid anymore.
I really like that. That's really interesting. Yeah. So you could do something that absorbed the liquid. Okay, good. I think the important thing in the Mishnah Berurah here is like we're not talking about like something that's like completely dry. It's like something you get rid of the liquid from, right? It's not okay, let's do also this is a Lamed Gimel. Oh wait, I should check my time to see if I want to do that. Yeah, I do want to do this one. Okay. This is so you're allowed to, if it's something that's Yavesh and it's already been fully cooked before Shabbos, you can steep it, is maybe the right word, in hot water on Shabbat. So I just want to see what he says about this because there's some interesting halachot here. So Isaac, read Lamed Gimel.
Okay. Mutar lishroto, so it's permissible to suspend it or soak it, whatever. Afilu bichli rishon noteach kedei sheyihyeh nimoach sham v'yihyeh devar lach. Even in a kli rishon that's boiling, the water in it is boiling, so that whatever you're putting in there will melt, and it will become liquid. Ve'ein bishul achar bishul, and there's no bishul achar bishul issue. Aval lo litino lichli rishon she'omed al gabei ha'esh, but just don't put in a kli rishon that's actually sitting on the fire itself.
Yeah. I want you to look before we talk a little bit more about this. Look at the Sharat Tziyun in Mem Vav on why you can't put it on a kli rishon that's omed al gabei ha'esh.
Okay. מפני דייש מחמירין דעל אש יש בישול אחר בישול, ועוד דייש בזה משום חשש חזרה. Because there are people who are stringent to say that there is bishul achar bishul if it's on the fire directly, and that there's a worry that this counts as returning it to a place where it's going to be cooked.
Yeah. Don't worry, the rest is where
it's the station.
Yeah. So exactly. So yeah, the two things. One is, right, of course, there's the worry of chazara. You're going to come to stoke the coals for chazara. But there's also actually, this is, I think, really interesting. There's an opinion out there, I'm not sure who it is, that on the, a kli rishon that's still on the fire, right? Because a kli rishon is a kli that was on the fire and is still hot. It doesn't have to still be on the fire. If it's still on the fire, some people say there is bishul achar bishul, no matter what the object is. And that's an important thing to know too. But once it's off the fire and it's a kli rishon, then it is you're allowed to put it in there and get very hot. That's a huge chumrah actually, and I have to think about that a little bit. So, but because I think what most of us do when we put stuff on a plata, that's, even though you never would cook on a plata, right? I don't think you would cook on it. It doesn't look like bishul. It doesn't. Most of them, at least the one I own, most that I've ever seen, don't have any controls. So you can't change the heat. You're not going to come to do that. Nonetheless, I don't know. Those are, maybe that is a kli rishon, like on the fire in the sense of kli rishon. So, although I've never known, everyone I know in the communities I'm in, will reheat dry food on a plata on Shabbos. So. Some will cover the plata in certain ways and so forth, but cover the light maybe that shows you it's on. Just worth knowing that chumrah's out there. Okay, let's go to Lamed Daled. The important thing in the Mishnah Berurah that I want to go back is, even if it's like you put it in this kli rishon, though, this is a kli rishon that you're putting in. This is a place where cooking would happen, and even if it like softens up and gets liquidy, that's okay, as long as it was dry when you put it there. That seems to be the Mishnah Berurah's take on this. So I know there are different opinions on this, but it's like when if I put my dry chicken back on the plata, or or in a kli rishon that's hot, some of the fat is going to melt right at the end of the day. That's going to happen, and it's going to get liquidy-ish, and then you're fine according to the Mishnah Berurah. So okay. Lamed Daled. Yes, I want to do oh yeah. Let's do that. So this is you can just make sure Lamed Daled. Yeah, this, if it's davar yavesh that wasn't completely cooked, you can't put it in chamin on Shabbat. So the question is, what kind of chamin? So let's see. Isaac, read this one too.
Okay. למד ד' שהיד צולדת בהן, ואפילו אם לא יניחו שם עד שיהיה נימוח, ואפילו בכלי שני נמי אסור לשרות. Page turn. דמחזה כמבשל.
Wait, stop there for a second.
Yeah, sorry. Back. Okay, so the water that we're talking about is the level is as hot as Yad Soleditbo. And even if you place it there until in the water until it melts.
But if you don't place it, right? You place it.
Oh, sorry, if you don't place it there until it melts, it's there for some amount of time and it's still solid or still dry. Even in a klisheni, it's forbidden to put it there. Because then it looks like you're doing bishul.
Exactly. So this is something that's a dry object that's not dry food that's not cooked before Shabbos. And you put it, you're like, I'm just going to warm it up. I'm not going to cook it, right? I'm just going to get it a little warm. You can't put it even in a kli sheni that's yad soledet bo, yet alone a kli rishon, because it looks like you're cooking. And this is a big principle on Shabbos of things that, even if they're not bishul, are michse kevishul, kimavashel. They look like bishul, and we're also not allowed to do those. So obviously that's a derabanan. That's not the deoraita, but still you're not allowed to do it. So okay. And then this next part I think is very important. We did I think mention this Magen Avraham in class that this is based on, but so.
V'la dame letavlin b'saif tet, d'la asar ela b'chli rishon, d'tavlin asuyin lematak hakedera, v'lo michazeh kim vashel. Okay, and this is not like the spices that are mentioned in Seif Tet, because that's not forbidden except if it's in a Kli Rishon, because spices are there to, I don't think this is sweeten, it's more like give flavor to the pot, the food in the pot really, and it doesn't look like cooking.
Exactly. So this is important, like, your soup, right? You've got your soup in a kli sheni on Shabbos, right? So you've taken it, kli rishon off the fire, you scoop it out. It might even be a kli shlishi, depending on how you use the ladle. But you can put, we'll talk about salt. That's going to come up actually when we get to Tet. There are some people who are very machmir about. Essentially the Gemara has a debate that either salt is like so hard to cook that even a kli rishon it can't be cooked, and others who are like it's so easy to cook even a kli sheni it cooks. But other spices, like I want to add some, I don't know, Trader Joe's has great spices. One of those Trader Joe's spices to my my soup on Shabbos. To the kli sheni, that's permitted because that's I'm not cooking. No one's gonna be like, oh, he's cooking the spices. They're gonna be like he's flavoring the soup. So. Okay,
cool.
Isn't there also a problem with salt actually being considered cooking for some things? Like for gentle fish and things like that are if you think about ceviche, but still even the show, it doesn't even mention that you can't salt things because it's considered like cooking.
Yeah, well, that's a different category, right? This is the category more of the salt itself would be cooked in the kli sheni. But yeah, here it's a question. As I said, even though the Mishnah Berurah isn't posting this way, I'm curious if anyone takes the approach that tea, right, is not. No one's gonna be like in my kli sheni. Granted, you could say the tea leaves are kali bishul, like that salt maybe, and maybe we should worry about it. But if you don't hold that, then the tea is sweetening the water. It's not cooking the tea, right? It's a different thing you're doing there. So maybe it's the same thing with coffee as well. Sweetening limatek, right? I think to this world doesn't mean lav dafka to make it sweeter like sugar, but rather to give it flavor, like Isaac said. So, okay, great. Yes, lamed hey. This is if something was not cooked before Shabbos and it's dry, you can be madiach hot water upon it on Shabbat. And this is a big question. I think we saw this in class as well. I don't know if we saw this in class or not, but it's a question of you can pour hot water from where, right? What kind of kli are we dealing with? So, but I think I've kind of taken for, even though I mentioned it, taken for granted up till now. like Kli Rishon, Kli Sheni are well-defined terms for everybody? Yeah? Okay, good. Kli Shlishi, by the way, is, as far as I understand, an innovation of Rav Feinstein's, Rav Moshe Feinstein. I don't think it exists in the literature up until there, but I'm not sure.
Except if you look at my source sheet in the Iraim that I sent out.
Oh, does the Yerim have it?
Yeah,
Okay,
but I don't think that Rav Feinstein saw that Iraim.
fair enough. So I need to look back at the source sheet clearly. It's oh, that's amazing that he was mechaven to an older to a Rishon. So
I mean, yeah.
I mean, Rav Moshe kind of is a Rishon in some ways, right? It's even though he's an Acharon,
I wouldn't say he's a Rishon. The
He's
Gra
not-
is a Rishon.
the Ramaz. You know, I mean, Rav Moshe's
The Gra.
yeah, he's not a
Rav
Rishon.
Moshe's, he will paskin from the Gemara if that's what you mean.
Exactly.
But he'll
yeah.
also reference other Rishonim.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I mean. I mean that I don't mean that he has the power of a Rishon. I mean that his approach is Rishon like. So
In the middle, yeah. Not cool, yeah. Anyway, whatever. It's a matter of subtleties. Go
yes.
ahead.
So okay. Lamed midichinoto, that we can pour hot water on this this uncooked dry food. So Josie, go ahead and read midichin.
1 second, I've got to get, okay. Madichinoto. V'hainu shema'ara alav mikli sheni demikli rishon. Demikli rishon asur la'arot alav de'iri kikli rishon. So this has to be the case that we're pouring from a kli sheni, because it's clearly forbidden to do it from a kli rishon, because you can't pour from a kli rishon. Uvashel kedei klipa.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is the rule we have, right? That if Iru Kli Rishon, this is Rabbeinu Tam actually, who is trying to resolve some things. Determine, I think it's Rabbeinu Tam, determines that that Iru Kli Rishon is mevashel kedei klipa. It doesn't cook fully, but it cooks a thin layer on the thing, which on Shabbos you're not allowed to cook at all, right? It doesn't matter how much you cook as long as you cooked, and so. It make a difference, right? When we get in Isser v'Heter, right? Because that could be, if it's just Kedei Klipa, it could easily be have Bitul, but here no, can't do that. So it must be Kli Sheni. Okay. I have lach sonen, davar lach sonen. Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, lach sonen. So you can pour from a kli sheni onto something that is cold and moist. Dehavale kehadacha be'alma. It's like I'm not quite sure how to pronounce to translate kehadacha be'alma.
It's merely washing the thing, right? Rinsing the thing, right? So if I pour like I'll give you an example, right? On my dry, dry is even, on my yeah, we'll start with the dry thing, but even if it's lach, it would work, right? On my coffee, my ground coffee, if I pour from a kli sheni, even hot water on Shabbos, I'm merely rinsing off the coffee, right? Or rinsing, I'm getting flavor in it, but it's not cooking anymore. I've removed myself from the land of cooking. This is actually kind of anticipating kli shlishi here, right? From a kli sheni is not, even if it's hot water from a kli sheni, that's not cooking. That is rinsing, and that's permitted on Shabbos. So so there's no worries about that in the same way. Okay, important kula to know for all of this. Let's see.
By the way, you can see in this a hint to Rav Moshe's psak.
Yeah,
because he's saying that pouring from a kli sheni is nothing. It's just hadacha. It's a garnished. So obviously a kli shlishi got there because you poured it from a kli sheni. So now it's a kli shlishi. It's nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can definitely make your tea in a kli shlishi. You can make your coffee in a kli shlishi.
Right. Because it's just hadacha.
Yeah.
It's not cooking at all. Now, so that I think is very interesting. That there you see that that's basically the lead into that portends of the Rav Moshe. But
Exactly.
the Yereim, I just want to point out, is machmir on Kli Shlishi. He's not the same as Rav Moshe. He says Kli Shlishi is the same as Kli Sheni.
Oh, in other words, there's cliches as far as once you're to Sheni, everything is equal from after that is the idea.
Yeah, he says if it's Yad, so let it go. It doesn't matter what Kli it's in.
Yeah. That's also in Isser V'Heter. I think it's the Rashba who holds that, right? He's like, you can't you know. So.
I remember it being, is it the Rashba? I remember also the other people, Pri Chadash or something, I think.
Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, to say, look, I think there's two ways of looking at it. One is that, hot water cooks, period, no matter, it's about temperature, although there's an interesting Tosfot about this, which I'll get into in a second. But the other version is like, the further you remove yourself from the fire, the less it is cooking, like as a category, right? It's,
right. Well, I mean, this is an amazing Mishnah Berurah, this little line here.
Yeah.
I think he's basically saying the din that once you're in a pouring from Kli Sheni, he says you can even do it onto a liquid. It's not bishul anymore. It's nothing.
Mm-hmm. So, but the other thing, by the way, just I'll mention the Tosfot, right? Also, the Tosfot says that look at Kli Sheni, they're looking for something physical. You have two fighting forces. You've got the hot water, but you have the walls of the Kli that are cooling down the water at the same time, and as opposed to a Kli Rishon where the walls themselves are hot, and that's the difference. That's the Tosfot's take on it. So. But I don't know if that makes a difference in terms of like lahalacha necessarily, but it makes a difference just in terms of like how to conceptualize these ideas. I wanted to look, where was this? I have a Berurah v'hadachtan. Oh, here it is. I found it. We're not going to do the whole thing. We're going to do the very end. So if everyone sees in the Berurah v'hadachatan, and towards the end, it should be, let's see, Hayotse is like the last line or two. Hayotse midvarenu. Because I thought this was also interesting.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, in the Hadachatan in the Berurah. Here, just to give you, this is about the, he's talking about the Kulyas Ha'ispanin and so forth, that those things you can't pour hot water on because that's Gemar Malachtan. And I mentioned there's a debate that goes on about what's the chiyuv here. Is the chiyuv for bishul or is the chiyuv for makeh patish? And I thought this was kind of interesting. So if you just I just want to see a summary here. Hayotse midvarenu. Max, you're on Berurah duty today. So
great. Okay. Hayotse midvarenu di inyan makeh patish davar ochelhu.
Davar ochel.
Makeh bepatish b'davar ochel hu davar chadash shelo nimtza beposkim. Right. The idea of makeh bepatish applying to food is a new chiddush.
Mm-hmm.
The adarabba yesh kama stiros lezeh ukmo shekasabnu lamala the imken
Valken.
Valken ein lahachmir bahadachas sonen b'shum gavna kila ainus dati be'inyan zeh.
Bezrat Hashem.
Bezrat, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, and there's actually a lot of I guess places that contradict this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason to be machmir when it comes to washing off cold things in any case.
I think washing things in cold water also, right? This is all like he's getting into, what if there's like a dry, dehydrated food to rehydrate on Shabbos? Is that makeh patish, and maybe that's asur? And the answer is no. Makeh patish is not shayach le'ochlin at the end of the day, according to the Mishnah Berurah in the Berurah, and therefore you don't worry about those cases. So rehydrating food, not a problem on Shabbos. pouring hot water on food where that's the Gemar Malacha, that is a problem. And those are two different things. So something that actually I think really could come up, right? This is, you want to add some cold water to some food to make it more edible. That's allowed. Actually, interestingly, cereal and milk, right? That's kind of what we do. You can eat cereal that's dry. I don't particularly enjoy it. Some people do. But so you're allowed to eat cereal and milk on Shabbos. No one's gonna be like, that's the Gemar Malacha, or somebody might say that, but the Mishnah Berurah wouldn't say that's the Gemar Malacha of the cereal. So, okay. Or maybe if you had like oatmeal that was very dry, you want to add some cold water to it. Or even, right, with the oatmeal, you could for sure, it's already been cooked, it's dry. You could probably add hot water from a Kli Rishon. You could even, definitely add from a Kli Sheni. Right, because there's definitely mivushal for oatmeal, right? You cook it in water, as long as it's cooked before Shabbos. So, okay, let's see. How is our time? Yes, a few more. We're doing great. Lamed Zayin in the Mishnah Berurah. This is, oh yeah. So one more thing about this is actually similar to what we just talked about. That the dag the Maliach Hayashan and the dag that's the Kulias Ha'ispanin, right? We said that you cannot pour chamin on them because hadachatan hi gemar melachtan. So Max, take the Mishnah Berurah here on Lamed Zayin hadachtan.
Okay, Vadachtan Rotzel Omar Bechamin. אבל בצונן מותר להדיחו, ואף לשער so, ואפילו בדבר שעל ידי שרייה בצונן נעשה ראוי לאכילה, שכל דבר שאינו אוכל, מותר לעשותו אוכל בשבס, כמו שכתב בסימן שכ"ד.
Yeah.
Okay, so that rinsing can be, sorry, the problematic rinsing is hot water. But with cold water, it's totally fine. And even to soak it in hot water is fine because anything that if you were to soak it in cold water, it would become edible. That since wait.
Yeah, even for something that would become edible with your shriya, right? Since we have a principle that it's that something that's not ochel, you're allowed to make it ochel on Shabbos, right? Right. In other words, right? Don't have a havamina that what's the isur of cooking? It's part of a larger isur, or even maybe there's a different isur of like makav batish again that you can't turn things that are not edible into edible things on Shabbos. That's not what cooking's about, and therefore you're actually allowed to do that. You're allowed to make inedible things edible. What you're not allowed to do is heat them to make them, in certain ways to make them edible, or even not even edible, make them better, make them, and so forth. So there's, I don't remember if it's here somewhere. I think it's the Mishnah Berurah talks about that. What is cooking? Cooking is either taking something, liquidy and solidifying it via heat, or taking something solid and melting it via heat, right? That's really what cooking is. But you need heat to make it bishul. So
does molid play in at all there?
Oh, you mean like taking something and melting it and freezing it that wasn't like ice? We say you can't make ice on Shabbos because it's a nolad. Yeah.
Or I saw somewhere about what's, oh my gosh, the thing that you squeeze like onto hot chocolate. I'm just totally blanking.
Oh, like whipped cream?
Whipped cream. Yeah. There
Or
could be
what about the magic crack shell?
I don't even know what that is. What
That's
is that?
like it looks like fudge sauce, except when you put it on ice cream, it automatically freezes and becomes hard.
Oh,
Sorry, I thought that's where you were going. And
no, that's an interesting question. I don't know, but yeah. But none of these is making that's like taking an object and making it into like a different kind of object, not taking food that's like not yet edible and making it more edible. Those are, I think, two different things. I don't know about that. What happens when with the whipped cream, it just melts, right?
I thought that by squeezing it out of out of the top, it actually turns into a different form.
Oh, is that right? I don't know. I don't know.
Think. That's what I heard someone say. Yeah. Which could be that it's potentially a moly problem.
Yeah, that I can imagine, right? That's changing the form of something is different from making it into edible, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah, the whipped cream out of those like spray canisters, that's a different. That's an interesting. I wonder if they. I imagine this Rashi Yochatat talks about that. That's I'm trying to think if I've ever seen somebody put whipped cream like out like for kiddush on like a milcha kiddush or something. I don't know.
I think I've seen it at Derek Kiddishes.
Yeah.
Like if you have like ice cream and you want to have sundaes or whipped cream or something like that.
But I think this is, like I'm not a shul rabbi. These are difficult questions shul rabbis have to deal with always, right? It's like you have to make psak halacha for the shul about like what you think is, permissible.
Are you allowed to take cream and sugar and liquid nitrogen to make ice cream?
Oh yeah, which would not be cooking, right?
Kind of the opposite of cooking, actually.
Yeah, but it might be nola again. So that's an interesting, so. But all right, but for the moment, we're not going to deal with NOLAD. We'll deal with that in the future thing when I'm sitting in the sugya better. And let's do tea, because the Mishnah Berurah has an incredibly long comment on this, and so let's see. We'll do some of it at least. But oh wait, somebody put something in the chat? Oh, okay. This is at the Yereim, right?
That was the Yereim from before.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This is the Ramah says that if you have something that's kolavar kashesh in lechol klal below shriya dasuli shatov b'shabbat dehavi gamar malacha. So it's you're forbidden to put it in that's not edible without. Actually, you know what? Let's read the Mishnah Berurah, but. Beforehand, Lamed Chet. So Isaac, read Lamed Chet for us.
Okay. והוא הדין כל דבר קשה. רצונו לומר דבר שהוא ראוי לאכול חי בלא בישול. אך שהוא יבש וקשה מאוד, עד שאינו ראוי לאכול כלל מחמת זה בלא שרייה בחמין, דאסור לשחוטו. Okay. So he's trying to say that something you could eat it raw without cooking it, and it's hard and dry, very hard, until it's not you're soaking it until it's not suitable to be eaten, because sorry. מאוד עד שאינו לאכול כלל מחמת זה בלא שרייה, until the point where it's not suitable to be, it's hard enough that you can't eat it unless you soak it in water.
What kind of water? Right?
Hot water.
Exactly. Right.
Then it's forbidden to soak in hot water. So this is something like dried shiitake mushrooms.
Exactly. This is not a case of something you can put in cold water, right, and make it gemar malacha, but hot water again, right? It's so otherwise it's not on the level of cooking. He's got an interesting question why the Ramah brings this, but I just wanted to that this is still a case of deraita, but not something I want to get into right now based on time. Now I want to do tea. So let's do lamitet. If you go down like a couple lines in the tea, it depends on which edition you have. He says v'atanev erdin bishul alehate. Right? Everyone see that? Te is written tet yud aleph. Ve'ata with an ayin. Now I will explain. Now let us explain the laws of cooking the tea leaves on right. Give me a thumbs up when you have it. Thumb. Okay, great. All right, Isaac, keep going for us. Start there.
ועתה נבאר דין בישול עלי התה, השייך בכמה עניינים לסעיף זה. So now we'll talk about cooking or making tea, which has plenty to do with this סעיף. הנה תה בשבת פשוט בפוסקים יש בו משום בישול, ובמזיד יש בו איסור סקילה, ושוגג חיוב החטאת, ועל כן יש להיזהר בו מאוד, ובעוונותינו רבים נכשלים בו
I
המקלים.
think it's Rabim Nishalim Bo, right?
Sorry, רבים נכשלים בו המקלים לעצמן בקולות שאין בהם ממש, ועל כן מוכרח אני לבאר אופני ההתר והאיסור בזה בעזרת השם יתברך. So,
you can
so
summarize.
yeah, so basically making tea on Shabbos is definitely cooking. And if lots of people are being led astray and doing many sins, and it's very bad, and now I will set you straight.
Exactly. By the way, you'll notice here he doesn't say don't make tea on Shabbos, right? He's
Right.
clearly tea is a major cultural thing already. Obviously has been for several hundred years, and he's going to teach us how do you do it appropriately on Shabbos. So, all right, go ahead.
Okay. הנה להראות מכלי ראשון על עלי התה, יש בזה בוודאי חשש אב מלאכה, דקיימה לן דעירוי מבשל כדי קליפה, כי לקמה בסעיף יוד, וכל שכן אם יעמידנו אחר כך על התנור, או בתוך הכחלין.
Yeah, some sort of heated way of heating liquids that they had.
Okay. עד שיהיה היד שולטת בו, בוודאי יבוא לכולי עלמא לידי איסור סקילה על ידי זה. ואפילו אם ירצה ליתן את עלי התה לתוך הכלי אחר שיערה החמין לתוכה כדי שיהיה על המים שם כלי שני, גם כן אסור. כי לקיימה לן בסעיף זה, דדבר שלא בא בחמין מלפני השבת, אין שולין בשבת אפילו בכלי שני, וכל כשן לפי מה שמבואר בסעיף זה, דייש בדברים רכים קלי הבישול, שמבשלים אפילו בהדחה מכלי שני, אפשר דייש בהעלים גם כן חשש איסור דאורייתא אפילו באופן זה.
Right, give me a summary of all of that, if that's possible. So,
okay, so pouring water from a kli rishon onto tea leaves, that's raises the issue of possibly doing a malacha, because iruri kli rishon is the same as bishul, and is oser kadei klipa if you're dealing with like Iser v'hetzer stuff. Okay, and then if you put it later on something that's going to heat it up until it gets so let it bow, that's also a problem, and would get you stoned. And even if you want to put the tea leaves into the water after you've poured the hot water into the vessel, so that it would be in a klisheni, that's also asur, because you're not supposed to put something in the hot water that hasn't been cooked before Shabbos, hasn't previously been put in the hot water.
that was right. We said Mara kimivashel or mirse kimivashel. It looks like cooking, right? That's part one. So
right. Sorry.
If you want, I'm gonna just to summarize this last piece here, if that's okay. Just and now how you right? He says, and right, we haven't gotten to this yet, but there are things that are called kale bishul, right? Really easy to cook. And those things, even a cliche cook, and maybe tea. Some people think tea leaves are actually part of that category. And so it may not even be that it's just like, mirse mevashel. It might be actually mevashel and cliche, and that's a problem. So, so he's given us all the problematic ways of cooking tea. So now he's going to give us how to do it.
This is an important little place here where the Mishnah Berurah mentions kali bishul.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't know if there's any other place where he mentions it actually.
Is this I don't think I was aware of that. That this is his.
I think this is where he talks about it.
Mhm.
This is it.
But
Because it's based on the din of the fish,
Mhm.
of the salted fish.
Yeah. So, and so one of the things, the tea seems to be to him something that he will say coffee also. Actually, he's gonna mention it in this Sif Katan as well. So,
Okay.
okay, now it's actually how to do it. So here we go.
Okay. ועל כן הסכימו האחרונים ויש להראות עליכם מערב שבת הולכים מכלי ראשון, כדי שעל ידי זה יהיה נקרא התה מבושל במקצת, דהירוי מבשל כדי קליפה, ויהפוך בעת ההירוי את התה היטב בתוך הרותחים מלמעלה למטה ולמטה למעלה, ויהיה יותר טוב שיהיה מבושל ממש על ידי העמדה במקום שנתבשל, ואחר כך
Yeah,
יריק.
actually, pause there. Then
Yeah.
we'll get to the next step.
So
Okay.
basically, you're supposed to put water into the tea leaves before Shabbos and mix it up really well, so that way it'll be considered partially cooked.
Yeah, or even completely. Right? He says even even put it on the hot water.
He's actually relying on Irui Kli Rishon as Bishul Lakula here.
Exactly. Yes.
In other words, Irui Mikli Rishon, we say, okay, we pass like Rabbeinu Tam that it's like Mavashil. And here we say, okay, well, we really are going to. So this is a little bit of a problem with this practice because maybe that's only L'chumra. He's saying Lakula, it's also considered Bishul. And you'll really sort of pour very quickly a little hot water on the tea leaves and turn them around up and down really quick. And then let them dry. I think he says let them dry. Exactly. And then you have like pre-cooked parboiled tea, and then that you could put in your klisheni.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the point is, of course, right, Irui Kli Rishon, if you think it cooks, then this works. And if you don't think it cooks, then well, it doesn't matter because Irui Kli Rishon doesn't cook, right? It's
exactly. Yeah, okay.
Wait, is there anyone who holds Irui Kli Rishon doesn't cook?
I think the Rambam, if I'm not mistaken, holds
okay.
That. So yeah, it's a major. It's a Tosafist opinion that Irui Kli Rishon cooks, but I think
Rabbeinu Tam and the Tosafot, right?
Yeah. So
presumably the other presumably Re holds that it's not cooking.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. So other Tosafists might also hold it. So that'd be a really wonderful thing to maybe some of the great writers about the Tosafists, like Kannerfogel or Fishman, people like that, have done research on this of like the different practices in the Tosafist school and like how they followed some of this lahalacha, but okay, but yeah, so you stir it really well. Maybe he says even better, you can put it actually just on the place of cooking beforehand to really cook it. Okay, so now what do you do, Isaac? Keep going. You're doing great.
ואחר כך יריק את האסנס לכלי אחר כדי שישארו עלי התה יבשים ויהיה מותר לו להראות אחר כך בשבת עליכם מים חמים מכלי ראשון כיוון שכבר נתבשלו אלו מערב שבת כדין דבר יבש, דקאמר למה סעיף זה דאין בו בישול אחר בישול אפילו אם נצטנן, ואחר כך מותר לו להחזיר גם...
Actually, pause there, but we'll get to the essence in a second, which is the...
Sorry, okay. So basically what you do is then you pour out the essence into another vessel, and then these tea leaves, you can pour water directly onto them from a Kli Rishon on Shabbos because they're already cooked and there's no bishul achar bishul on it, and you are hot to trot.
Exactly. So, right, that's making tea version 1. He's got a version 2 coming here. So,
okay, version 2, of course.
It kind of starts in the parenthetical, if I remember correctly, and then
but I think the parenthetical is saying, and now if you wanted, you could take the essence that you put already on the side and put it also back into your tea.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's
this is still part of the same process.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's later. He says you could just take the essence itself, right? Maybe
later he says you could just take the essence, right?
Yeah, because you could.
Here he's saying that you could, now that you have that essence on the side and you've made your tea, now you could pour some of the essence back in.
Mm-hmm. So. And this way you don't lose the flavor either, right? You have all the flavor either comes out the second time or is in the essence, and so it's
going to be pretty crappy tea no matter what.
Fair enough. It's but you know, Isaac, you look like you're about to say something.
No, I'm
All
good.
right, let's give you a break. Let's Max, you want to take over? Ve'achar kach mutar lachzir in the parenthetical.
Yeah. ואחר כך מותר לו להחזיר גם מי האסנס אלו הצוננים לסוך הכלי. לסוך הכלי זה גופה, וכמו שחשבנו לעיל, דבר לך שנצטנן, מותר לו לזנו בסוך הכלי. בסוך כלי שני רותח. Okay, and after that, you can put the essence back into the kli itself where the tea leaves are. But because a davar lach that's cooled down, you can put that's within a kli sheni.
You could put into a hot kli.
You can put into a hot kli sheni.
Exactly, right? So, right, this is going to come up also. I think he's going to talk about milk here, if I remember correctly. You can also do the same thing with your milk, right? Your milk, well, assuming your milk has been pre-boiled, although even, well, we'll see. He's going to say. Okay, so keep going.
Okay. Im yisha'er bo mashke ha'essence, hare kaimalan de belach yesh bishul achar bishul, im nitztanen, im lo, im nitztanen im lo, shemei ha'essence atzonanim hem merubin, shelo yischamemu al yedei hamayim sheme'are alehen lemachar. Okay, so if there's any of the essence remaining,
he's explaining why he told you to pour off the essence and let them dry out. Because if you leave the essence in, then you can't pour hot water on it. If you do that, if you don't separate it, you can't pour hot water on it.
Yeah. So now we're getting, by the way, this is because I think the first place I've seen this, the Mishnah Berurah is really ruling about things that are a mixture of dry and liquid, right? Maybe you think maybe majority and so forth. He's like, no. If you leave the lach in the tea, that's a problem. So,
right. Then you couldn't do anything the next day.
Exactly. Yeah, you could. I mean, you could drink the essence by itself. You could, it's but and also you could put the essence. What you could do is you could pour, right? You could pour water into a kli sheni, hot water, and you could pour the essence into it, which I think he's going to get into. But right, because that was davar lach sheni bashel, you can pour into a kli sheni. That's not a problem. So, okay. Keep going. V'chein adin linyan kafe.
Okay, v'chein adin linyan kafe.
Sorry, let me just point out one more thing. When he says, unless the essence is a lot, in which case, even when you pour the hot water in it, it won't get that hot, and then that would be mutter. So if you want to have a lukewarm tea, you could actually use essence as long as you use a lot of essence.
Yeah. So
and put a little bit of hot water in it, and it cools down, doesn't get beyond, so let it. Then you could have lukewarm tea.
Virtual, I have to go. I've got.
Thank you, Josie. Have a good Shabbos.
So.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rav Nachman.
Don't forget next week.
I will send out. We'll figure out what time we're meeting, and I'll send out. It's also Purim for some people, as we said. So we'll have to figure everything out. So, okay. Actually, I think right in Yerushalayim too. You read Megillah Thursday, the same time we do this year, right? Because it's on a Thursday night. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's Purim Meshulash. So
the whole world reads on Thursday.
Yeah, whole world. Is there anything else I want to do this?
I'll read a little bit. Let me read a little bit.
Yeah, please go for it.
Okay. Where were we?
That was at V'chein Hadin.
V'chein Hadin Linan Cafe.
Wait a second. V'chein Hadin Inyan coffee. Yizaher shelo yareh alehen mayim chamim mikli rishon. Don't pour hot water from kli rishon on coffee. Im lo she'ira lehem etmol. Unless again you poured water before Shabbos on them, and now you want to reuse them a second time. And of course you can take off the water because it's be dry. Malehem. Atam could call it out. And the same basic rule applies that we've just said. Okay. V'da, and no. The af shetarnu la'arot chamin alalei te v'kafe. Even though you could pour hot water on Shabbos on the coffee and the tea, if you poured before Shabbos on them, also hot water, and in this whole way that we just said, you shouldn't put the cup, like after you made the cup of tea, and now you have a cup of tea there, shouldn't put the cup on an oven, a hot oven that's like they have in Europe. They have these big ovens to heat the house, or on a radiator. That's why I'm going to translate it.
I like that. Yeah.
Or on a radiator. Even after you poured the water on them and you made your tea. Because the irui just cooked it partially. V'im ken lo nitbashel etmo rak kedei klipa. It didn't really fully cook. It was only cooked klipa. Now you're going to cook it more. There's still cooking that can go on here. So basically, the pouring that you did just sort of parboiled them, and then on Shabbos you can parboil them again, but you can't now put it on something that's going to keep it warm and maybe get it even hotter. V'hinei, ofen zeh shebe'arnu, this method that we've explained, av she'ein limchot biyad anogim bo, even though we wouldn't object if people followed this course of action, mikol makom, katvu achronim eitza hamuvcheret mizeh. They have a better idea. V'hainu sheyitaken ha'essence me'erev Shabbos. Make the liquid from before Shabbos, the essence, legamre. Sheyitaken ha'essence me'erev Shabbos legamre. Shelo yitztarech la'arot letocho od rotchin. So now you've made a tea essence before Shabbos, and you're never going to have to pour any hot water onto any tea leaves because you've already made it. L'machar Shabbos, v'lemachar, and on Shabbos, kishe yitztarech l'shtot, and when you want to have a cup of tea, yitena essence of tzonin letocha kos. You put a little bit of the essence in a cup. Shotebo, that you're going to plan on drinking from. Achar she'ireh hamayim chamim l'tocho v'naseh klisheni. So actually the reverse. First put hot water into a cup, and now it's klisheni, and now you can put the essence into the klisheni. And basically he's telling you a klal, which I'll summarize in the following words. Ein bishul achar bishul belach b'klisheni.
Exactly.
In other words, he's saying a big kiddush. Because we would have said, what do you mean? How can you do this? It's bishul achar bishul. Even the tea essence getting hot from this hot water, it should be bishul achar bishul. But klisheni, there's no such thing. That's what's implied. That's what's in between the words here. So who adin shemuter l'teit l'toch hakos hazeh.
Should be
klisheni. Halav, you could put in milk. Shinitztanen. That got cold. Notice he says the shinitztanen. You must be talking about milk that was also heated up.
It has to be, right? Otherwise you couldn't put it in a klisheni because it wouldn't have been
cooked. It was cooked. He's talking about modern day milk, which we actually have that it's been boiled and then cold. Aval asr la'arot, right? Modern day milk has all been boiled.
Yes.
Shinitztanen. Aval asr la'arot aleihem mikli rishon. But don't think you could put the essence in a cup and then pour from the kli rishon hot water. Idleel b'sif dalid V'kisha shelo eino tzonen. But if you keep your essence hot, which some people do, ובוודאי טוב לצאת בזה ידי כל הדעות. Then you have no problems in any way, thing what you do. And that's what some people do. They put a little tiny metal pot on top of their hot water urn, and they keep the tea essence hot.
Yeah. So, okay. So, right, we have, I know we're a little over time, just right to summarize, you can either, according to the Mishnah Berurah, right, either you parboil your tea leaves before Shabbos, you dry them out, and then you can, once again, pour from a Kli Rishon on the tea leaves. You can then add back in the essence you made, or you could just make really strong essence and then pour that into a Kli Sheni, right? And you could pour milk into it if it was, pasteurized milk. And if you really want, you can keep your essence just hot all Shabbos, and then you don't have to worry about anything, right? But those are all his methods of making tea and coffee, right? Coffee would apply the same way. Okay, Tov. Yishar koach, everybody. Good shot. Thank you, Rav Nachum. It's a pleasure when you get to join.
Yishar koach, Joel. I'm happy to join.
So
that's such an interesting topic, especially.
Yeah.
Okay. Laila Tov.
Laila Tov, everybody. Have a good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Laila Tov, thank you.